The news hit like a thunderclap on October 21, 2025. Mexico announced a 100% tariff on all U.S. electric vehicles. In Mexico City, President Claudia Sheinbaum's government made it clear this was direct retaliation for President Trump's aggressive trade policies. The White House had been tightening economic pressure, expecting compliance. Instead, Mexico fought back, stunning Washington and Ottawa. This wasn't a minor spat. It was a calculated strike at a core American industry, instantly throwing North America's auto supply chain into chaos. U.S. automakers, reliant on cross-border trade, now faced their vehicles doubling in price overnight in a key market. President Sheinbaum's message: Mexico would not be bullied. If the U.S. used tariffs as weapons, Mexico would do the same. Financial markets reeled as the news shattered the assumption that Mexico and Canada would always absorb U.S. economic pressure. In Washington, disbelief turned to anger. Trump had just imposed a 200% tariff on Chinese EVs, expecting Mexico's support. Instead, Mexico targeted American cars, fracturing the united front against China and upending decades of economic integration. The move was a bold declaration of economic sovereignty, designed to inflict maximum pain on the administration that provoked it. The world watched as North America's economic future was thrown into uncertainty. The stage was set for a confrontation that could reshape the continent. The crisis began months earlier, when President Trump returned to the White House and unleashed a wave of tariffs on America's closest allies. Canada was hit first, a 50% tariff on steel, striking at the heart of its industry and economy. Mexico soon followed, facing a 25% tariff on pharmaceuticals, and a controversial fentanyl tariff on a range of goods. The White House claimed these measures protected American jobs and security, but to its neighbors, they felt like betrayal. For decades, North American trade was built on integration. NAFTA and USMCA created a seamless market. Trump's tariffs shattered that consensus, creating uncertainty for businesses and threatening jobs across all three countries. Canadian steel producers warned of layoffs. U.S. industries reliant on Canadian and Mexican components faced rising costs. The tariffs weren't just numbers, they threatened real livelihoods and economic growth. Mexico and Canada, long dependent on U.S. trade, now faced a stark choice: absorb the pain or fight back. Trump's aggressive opening move set the stage for the dramatic retaliation that followed. The era of North American cooperation was suddenly in jeopardy. Under pressure, Mexico didn't back down. President Sheinbaum's government struck back with a 100% tariff on U.S. electric vehicles, a masterstroke of economic warfare. The move targeted a high-profile sector Trump was trying to shield from China, exposing a vulnerability in his America First agenda. Major U.S. automakers like Ford and GM, who invested billions in EVs, suddenly faced losing access to a growing Mexican market. Many American EVs are assembled in Mexico, but the new tariff hit, finished vehicles heading south, sending shockwaves through Detroit. The Trump administration had expected Mexico to align with its China policy. Instead, Mexico prioritized its own interests. The result: American automakers, already struggling with EV profitability, now faced a major financial headache. The industry was left reeling, uncertain what further escalation might bring. Mexico's move proved the North American auto industry was a two-way street, and disruptions would not be one-sided. The counterpunch landed hard, and the rules of the trade game had changed overnight. The entire industry was forced to rethink its future in a suddenly hostile landscape. As the US and Mexico traded blows, Canada found itself in a precarious position, caught in a fight it didn't start but couldn't escape. Mexico's tariff on US EVs sent shockwaves through Ottawa, as Canada's auto sector is deeply tied to both neighbors. Canadian companies supply everything from steel to advanced components for American EVs, many now priced out of the Mexican market. A blow to US automakers meant fewer orders for Canadian suppliers, threatening jobs in Ontario and Quebec. Prime Minister Mark Carney's government scrambled to respond, seeking urgent talks with both Washington and Mexico City. Canada shared Mexico's frustration with Trump's tariffs, but Mexico's retaliation risked collateral damage to Canadian workers. Ottawa was forced to walk a diplomatic tightrope, showing solidarity with Mexico while protecting its own economy. The trade war exposed Canada's vulnerability and dependence on stable U.S. trade. Businesses worried about investment, families worried about jobs. Canada was a bystander, but close enough to get hurt by every punch thrown. The foundation of decades of prosperity, predictable trade, was suddenly crumbling. The stakes for Canada had never been higher. Even before the tariff war erupted, Canada and Mexico's leaders were moving closer. In September 2025, Prime Minister Carney visited President Sheinbaum in Mexico City, the first such visit in 8 years. Their goal: coordinate a unified strategy for the 2026 USMCA review and defend the principles of free and fair trade. Both leaders emphasize partnership, not competition, determined to resist Trump's divide-and-conquer tactics. The summit laid the groundwork for joint consultations and a shared front in upcoming negotiations. When Mexico announced its EV tariff, it did so knowing it had a sympathetic partner in Ottawa. The alliance didn't mean Canada endorsed every move, but it ensured deep diplomatic goodwill and strategic alignment. Together, they braced for the storm from the south, stronger as allies than alone. The scale of North American trade is staggering, nearly $1 trillion a year between the US and Canada alone. Millions of jobs depend on this flow, with the US also serving as Mexico's largest trading partner. The auto industry is the clearest example. Parts and vehicles cross borders multiple times before reaching consumers. Trump's tariffs and Mexico's retaliation threaten to grind this engine to a halt. Tariffs on Canadian steel and Mexican auto parts drive up costs for US companies, forcing tough choices: absorb losses or raise prices. Moody's warned that smaller US firms would be hit hardest, unable to weather sudden cost spikes. For ordinary people, the impact is real: higher prices for cars, fuel, and everyday goods. On the other side, Canadian and Mexican workers face layoffs as orders slow. The billions at stake aren't just numbers, they represent the financial security of millions of families. The trade war's ripple effects threaten prosperity across the continent. The trade war is just one symptom of a deeper diplomatic rift under President Trump. His confrontational style has strained relationships with both Mexico and Canada, challenging the idea of partnership. Reports of a secret U.S. order authorizing military action in Mexico, and the symbolic renaming of the Gulf of Mexico fueled outrage and distrust. Canada, too, faced provocations. Trump's offhand remarks about Canada becoming the 51st state unsettled a nation proud of its independence. Traditional diplomacy has been replaced by unpredictability, making it harder to resolve even basic disputes. The well of trust has been poisoned, complicating efforts to find common ground in a time of crisis. North America stands at a crossroads. The trade war has shattered decades of cooperation, leaving economic uncertainty in its wake. The auto and energy sectors brace for chaos, while ordinary citizens face rising costs and job insecurity. The upcoming 2026 USMCA review, once routine, is now a high-stakes battleground for the continent's future. The Canada-Mexico alliance will be tested as they confront an American administration determined to rewrite the rules. Resolving this crisis will require statesmanship and a renewed commitment to partnership. The leaders of all three nations face a choice: escalate the conflict, or rediscover the spirit of cooperation that built North America's prosperity. The decisions made now will shape the continent for decades. The future of shared prosperity hangs in the balance.